Horror games nowadays love unarming you and doing the hide and seek "oh shit I fucked that up, now run away" thing. Which was fine when Amnesia did it, then every tosser ran it into the ground. Never mind that you walk by spades, knives, pitchforks, dildos, whatever to defend yourself with, but the stupid wanker protagonist never thinks to pick them up. Horror games can still be scary when you're armed, and no further proof is needed than Condemned: Criminal Origins' existence. It's a first-person survival horror game with an emphasis on melee combat, with a plot that simulates what will happen now the Conservatives and DUP have won the UK general election. Crime is at an all-time high. Crackheads roam the streets taking refuge in abandoned buildings ready to smash your white middle-class face in. You play as Ethan Thomas, an FBI investigator on the hunt for the Matchmaker serial killer, a weird cunt who kills people and displays them in scenes using mannequins. He steals Ethan's gun and kills 2 police officers, leaving Ethan to go on the run whilst also tailing the killer to bring him to justice. The plot does go some interesting places. It turns out the killer isn't the matchmaker, he kills serial killers that Ethan has been investigating. It doesn't sound super exciting, I know, but it's well told until you get towards the end where evil cults get involved. As Ethan is going through his investigation through the biggest shitholes known to man, he also has to smash in a lot of crackheads using whatever he can find. Lead pipes, boards with nails, locker doors, you name it. All the weapons have their own reach, block, damage and speed stat, and there's no degradation on the weapons, so you can experiment and find what school destroyer you like more. It's quite a simple combat system. You have a parry which you have to time right with the enemy's swings, and it can get quite tricky since they do different wind-ups, swing speeds, as well as doing fake outs. A successful parry gives you an opening to twat a working class scumbag across the chops. You also get a kick to put some distance between you and your attacker, as well as a taser which stuns enemies and is super useful when the enemy numbers get a bit much. Which is actually something I really like about Condemned. First person combat systems can only really handle 1 or 2 enemies attacking you at once, since it's pretty hard to track where they all are, and Condemned mainly sticks to the 1 or 2 blokes at once. And when it gets more than that, the taser becomes your crowd control option. It's just satisfying to twat someone across the bonds, in game I mean, not for real. There's a great sense of impact. Smackheads recoil and cover their face and visibly get pissed off when you're absolutely spanking them. So it is a very violent game. The gruesome executions you can pull off when you knock an enemy to their knees look brutal, as well as feeling psychotically satisfying, especially after a difficult scrap. I think the violence really adds to the horror, as it's a realistic-ish level. For example, in something like Dead Space, when you get hit, there's 500 pints of blood on screen and body parts go flying everywhere, and it comes across as silly rather than frightening. But in Condemned, a drug-crazed homeless man comes at you in a frenzy, swinging a pipe about with pure aggression, screaming at you. And when you twat them, there's not loads of blood flying everywhere, there's just a dull thud and they recoil, or get slightly stunned, or just tank the hit in a blind rage. That's not to say there isn't ghastly scenes in the game, there totally is, and they are effective because the game doesn't go overboard with them. Enemies also try to hide when you enter a room and get the drop on you, but sometimes you can see their arms poking out when they are pressed against a wall, and later on it gets a bit predictable. Also later on you encounter more supernatural looking foes, but it could be possible that these enemies live on a diet of smack and ketamine, which has caused them to look like zombies almost. The game never really explains it, and that's fine with me, as it lets you fill in the blanks like I did. Someone else might have a completely different interpretation. I know fear is subjective. For me though, Condemned is decently pant-pissing. Walking home from work or whatever at night, it is pretty possible a smackhead could leap out of a bush, reeking of blood and shit, swinging a pipe at you, especially if you live in Birmingham. Whereas, as scary as Silent Hill 2 is, you're not going to be transported to your own interpretation of hell anytime soon. unless you live in Birmingham. See what I'm getting at here? People say fear of the unknown is the scariest, but there's definitely a place for fear of the known, as it's close to our hearts and could even, if unlikely, happen. Besides smashing heads, you also have the forensic investigation segments as well, which don't really have enough depth to them to make you feel like a true investigator. The game automatically selects the tool you need, you point it at the evidence and boom, CSI for 3-year-olds. Your black sidekick at the office does all the work for you and tells you everything the evidence means, which you would think is Ethan's job. The FBI must only like him because of his ability to batter poor people. It could be a bit deeper, is what I'm saying. As mentioned at the start, the environments in this game are all shitholes, just like that abandoned shop you walk by on your way home and you swear you can hear homeless people having an orgy in there. And it's a good design choice, much like the realistic-ish enemies. The environments are familiar to you and me as we see them in day-to-day life, as well as being places homeless, crazy, angry drug addicts would congregate. The game still looks really nice in 2017. That might be because the game is really dark though. Most of the dodgy textures are covered up by that. Character models look low detail by today's standards, but the attack animations from enemies are still really smooth and natural looking. The sound design is also brilliant. There's not much music in the game, and that's great because Condemned knows how to use silence and subtle sounds really well. I think the first encounter in the game shows this off the best.
Thomas, Dickinson, there's one coming your way. Addict amped up on something.
Federal agent, come out peacefully or I will use force.
Fuck you!
Hear that? The bucket falling over that I didn't realise was there, and the arsehole taunting me, and that breathing before I got twatted scared the shit out of me. The sound is just But your orgasmic bliss will quickly be blueballed by the game's snobby doors that can only be opened by certain weapons. For example, some doors can be smashed down by a fire axe but not, say, a sledgehammer. It's just used as an excuse to backtrack through the level to find the right tool. It's padding, pure and simple, and it stops the pace dead in its tracks. Then there's the gun combat, which whilst being a minor part of the game is just lacking any impact or satisfaction. Enemies when using guns have infinite ammo, and it seems they can hit you with a shotgun from miles away, whilst you either have to charge at them or place your shots really well. If you need ammo for your current gun, you can't just run over the same gun on the ground and collect the ammo. No, you have to swap the gun out for your current one and just use what ammo is in it. Unnecessary faffing, I think. But I do like the ammo checking mechanic, where you press Y to check your cartridge to see how many shots you have left. It looks cool and adds to the desperation of your situation in a subtle way. And there's a little bit of dodginess in the close combat too, in regards to the reach of weapons. A scumbag will swing his weapon at you and clearly you see it's not even close to hitting you, but it still hits you, like you've been damaged by the wind produced from his swing, but that is a rare thing. So in the end, Condemned is fucking wicked, mate. If you want a decent, shortish survival horror game with an interesting premise, good mechanics, and the pant-pissing factor, go for it. It might help you survive in the apocalypse the Tories are going to bring.